Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. A newly released Pentagon document says the Trump administration believes South Korea is capable of taking primary responsibility for deterring North Korea. Experts suggest this reflects a move towards selective U.S. engagement and a reduced regional military role. Tensions are growing in Minneapolis after a federal immigration officer shot and killed 37-year-old Alex Pretti, making him the second person to be fatally shot in the city during the immigration enforcement crackdown this month. At least 7 people have been killed after a massive winter storm hit the United States, bringing heavy snowfall and cold temperatures. Over 1 million households lost electricity and thousands of flights have been canceled across the country. We begin this morning with the Trump administration's new national defense strategy that could signal a shift toward a more asymmetrical Seoul-Washington alliance. Now, that's according to the director of the Korea program at the Stimson Center, James Kim, on Sunday. His comments come after the Pentagon said Friday that Seoul can take primary responsibility for deterring North Korea, citing its strong military, defense spending, and conscription system. It added U.S. support will remain important, but more limited. Kim said the new NDS reflects a move towards selective U.S. engagement and a reduced regional military role. He added that signs of the shift are already visible, including ongoing efforts to transfer wartime operational control, and warns that broader U.S. geopolitical priorities could further limit American involvement abroad. So the Trump administration released its new national defense strategy and said South Korea is capable of taking primary responsibility for deterring North Korea, suggesting a possible shift in its policy toward Pyongyang and raising concerns here in South Korea. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Min Jung-un, professor at Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Min, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So this new defense strategy suggests South Korea will take more responsibility, as the United States prioritizes defending its homeland. What's your take on this?
Yes, the National Defense Strategy, NDS, of the second term of government prioritizes the safeguarding core U.S. interests, like protecting the homeland security and expanding influence in the Western Hemisphere or American continent, and tracking the rise of China and promoting stability and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. And to that end, the Trump government wants U.S. allies and partners to play more active roles in addressing regional security threats. So for South Korea, Washington expects Seoul to cope with North Korea's conventional military threats, and U.S. will provide critical but more limited support against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. So the South Korean government, I think, needed to enhance its military capabilities and develop the ROK-US alliance into a more balanced and future-oriented strategic alliance. And I think that the South Korean military has got sufficient military capabilities to effectively cope with North Korea's conventional military threats. So it's about time for the two countries, South Korea and U.S., to deliver how they would maintain the airtight security on the Korean Peninsula based on South Korea's expanded roles and contributions. So I think the shifting strategic interests of the United States provide South Korea with their significant momentum to make progress for securing its self-defense capabilities and play a more active role in the security and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific.
I see. And this Pentagon document also makes no mention of denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. What does this suggest about the Trump administration's North Korea policy in 2026?
Well, again, the NDS made it clear that North Korea poses a direct military threat to South Korea and Japan, although many of North Korea's large conventional forces are old or poorly managed. And South Korea must stay vigilant about the threat of North Korean invasion. And in addition, North Korea's nuclear forces impose a threat to the United States, and they are growing in size and sophistication. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, the document did not include the denuclearization of North Korea or the Korean Peninsula. So I think that the Trump government will be open to pursue a small deal or arms control negotiation with North Korea in order to practically control North Korea's nuclear and missile capabilities, rather than insist a big deal that it pursued or failed to reach an agreement in the past. And it is known that President Trump is the only person who can make a decision about what U.S. will do to improve the relationship with North Korea. And considering that President Trump want to meet Kim Jong-un again, so it is likely that the Trump government's North Korea policy this year will be focused on an active engagement through its efforts to revitalize summit diplomacy between the two leaders. So it is expected that U.S. will be more active to reach out to North Korea, and President Trump's visit to Beijing this April can be a turning point for the dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang.
Right, and meanwhile, South Korea's prime minister was in the United States over the weekend, and he met with Vice President J.D. Vance and proposed the idea of the United States sending a special envoy to North Korea as a way to improve relations between Washington and Pyongyang. Do you think this could be an effective measure?
Yes, personally, I think that sending a special envoy to Pyongyang with President Trump's letter to Chairman Kim Jong-un could be a good way to resume the communication between the two countries. It is known that Vice President Vance asked the Prime Minister Kim what would be a good approach for the U.S. to take in order to improve relations with North Korea. And Prime Minister Kim answered that only President Trump has the will and ability to improve the relationship with North Korea. And sending a special envoy to Pyongyang, whether it could be Vice President Vance or someone else, could be one way of expressing a willingness to improve the relationship. And taking into account that the inter-Korean relations are unfortunately at the bottom, so revitalizing the summit diplomacy between President Trump and Chairman Kim is the only possible way currently of bringing North Korea back to the negotiating table. So attention has increasingly turned to the leadership role of President Trump. And as you know, again, President Trump already met Kim Jong-un 3 times and continues to send a love call to Pyongyang since returning to the White House. So I think South Korea is working closely with Washington to create conditions that could encourage Pyongyang to come back to the dialogue. So, and then again, the President Trump will visit to Beijing this April. So there is a growing expectation that President Trump will meet Kim Jong-un at the Panmunjom by the time.
I see. And another issue that came up during his talks with Vance was investigation into the recent data breach at Coupang. And Kim said the Korean government did not take discriminatory action against Coupang. Do you think the government is succeeding in reassuring Washington that the Coupang dispute will not escalate into a diplomatic issue?
Yes, I think so. It is known that when talking to the Prime Minister Kim, the Vice President Vance fully understood the circumstances facing Coupang under the Korean system. The Prime Minister Kim mentioned that there had been a delay of over 50 months in reporting the leak of information to a huge number of Korean customers, and the groundless accusations had recently been made at the President Lee Jae-myung and the Prime Minister Kim Min-seok. And here, the Prime Minister Kim made it clear that there was no discrimination against American companies regarding the Coupang dispute, and the Vice President Vance expressed his understanding about the situation. And Prime Minister Kim also mentioned that the Coupang dispute will be managed in a controlled manner in order to avoid misunderstandings and overheating between the two governments. And he also assured that the Korean government would share the information about the case with the U.S. counterparts. So I think the Coupang dispute will not escalate into a diplomatic issue because the two governments have a clear understanding about the case through close communications. And as Prime Minister Kim mentioned, since the Lee Jae-myung government took office, the relationship between South Korea and U.S. has become stronger, and it is not easily swayed by just the business lobbying. But meanwhile, I needed to point out this, that what the Coupang investors did against the Korean government is likely to make the Korean customers' perception on the Coupang get much worse, and it will negatively affect maintaining its business in South Korea.
Right, I see. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Min, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Civil unrest is growing in Minneapolis after ICE agents shot and killed a U.S. citizen this weekend, prompting Governor Tim Walz to demand the immediate withdrawal of federal forces. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Tensions in Minnesota have reached a boiling point following the second fatal shooting by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis this month. Crowds gathered on Sunday to mourn Alex Pretti, a former nurse at a veterans hospital. Demonstrators marched toward Minneapolis City Hall chanting "ICE out," breathing freezing temperatures to demand an end to what they call an unchecked federal surge. Despite the public outcry and the escalating unrest, federal authorities maintain that their operations will not be scaled back.
Our Title VIII immigration mission continues unabated here in Minneapolis, despite yesterday's tragedy that was preventable by folks making better choices, politicians, journalists, and would-be anarchists and rioters.
State officials are pushing back. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz directly addressed the Trump administration, questioning the strategy behind the federal deployment that has now resulted in 2 deaths, including 37-year-old Renee Good earlier this month.
So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state? You thought fear, violence, and chaos is what you wanted from us, and you clearly underestimated the people of this state and nation.
The circumstances surrounding Pretti's death remain disputed. It has been confirmed that Pretti was armed and held a valid license to carry. Authorities claim he intended to harm agents, but video footage from the scene has not definitively supported these claims, and a witness identifying himself as a U.S. veteran stated that Pretti did not appear to be resisting at the time of the shooting. The instability is drawing concern from businesses in the state. The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, representing over 60 CEOs of major state-based companies, issued a statement Sunday calling for an immediate de-escalation. The chamber emphasized that the business community has been in communication with the White House and local mayors, warning that the current volatility is threatening the state's economic stability. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And staying in the United States, a historic winter storm has slammed the country, bringing heavy snow, ice, and widespread power outages. At least 7 people have been killed and over 1 million households lost electricity, while thousands of flights were canceled as states from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast declared emergencies. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
At least 7 people have been confirmed dead as a massive winter storm continues to batter large parts of the United States, bringing heavy snow and ice from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast. According to authorities on Sunday, the deaths mostly stemmed from hypothermia due to the freezing temperatures. The powerful winter storm has also knocked out electricity for more than 1 million customers, with outages reported as far west as New Mexico. Utility crews are working to restore power, but icy conditions and fallen trees are slowing repair efforts in many areas.
It could take days to restore power, and we know behind the storm, there's more cold air. So if you are stuck without power, you're going to want to find a way to make sure that you can keep your home warm and keep yourself warm for potentially days after this storm.
The storm has also triggered widespread travel chaos. According to flight tracking site FlightAware, more than 10,800 flights scheduled for Sunday were canceled nationwide, following more than 4,000 cancellations on Saturday. Airports across the east and west were forced to shut down or significantly scale back operations as runways and aircraft were coated in ice. Calling the storm historic, President Donald Trump on Saturday approved federal emergency disaster declarations for a dozen states, while the U.S. Department of Homeland Security said 17 states and the District of Columbia declared weather emergencies as the storm intensified. Officials are urging residents to avoid unnecessary travel and prepare for extended power outages, as forecasters warn that dangerous conditions may linger even as the storm system gradually moves eastward. 이승재, Arirang News.
Former South Korean Prime Minister Lee Hae-chan has passed away at the age of 73. He died in Vietnam on Sunday while on a business trip as the senior vice president of the Peaceful Unification Advisory Council. His remains are scheduled to arrive at Incheon International Airport early on Tuesday morning, with a memorial altar to be established at Seoul National University Hospital. A 7-term lawmaker, Lee was a heavyweight in South Korean politics, serving as prime minister under the Nomuyon administration and education minister under Kim Dae-ju. Often called a kingmaker of the liberal bloc, he was instrumental in the elections of Presidents Moon Jae-in and Lee Jae-myung. The ruling Democratic Party has designated a party-wide mourning period, honoring him as a pillar of the nation's democracy. A small county in southern part of South Korea is drawing attention with a bold travel policy, allowing visitors to explore the area at half the expenses. And the effort is already paying off, delivering a boost to the local economy. Our culture correspondent Park Geon-woo was there to show us how.
Imagine being able to travel for half the cost. This is what's happening in Gangjin-gun, one of the southernmost counties on the Korean peninsula, surrounded by a beautiful ocean and bays spread with vast reed fields. Known for its clean environment and rich biodiversity, Gangjin has been offering pre-registered travelers half of their spending in local gift certificates since 2024, usable on their next visit. This policy aims to revitalize the region as its population declines, now standing at just over 30,000. And since this year's program began on January 19th, visitors have already been pouring in, despite Korea's recent cold snap.
I hadn't visited before because it felt far away, but this policy makes it very appealing, as you can enjoy traditional culture and explore around. If it expands nationwide, I think more young couples will choose domestic travel.
The numbers back that up. In the first year, more than 15,000 groups joined the program, spending around $4.5 million US. Just a year later, participation jumped to nearly 40,000, with spending more than doubling. And as hands-on cultural travel continues to grow, Gangjin is fast becoming more than just a sightseeing stop. Thanks to its rich natural environment, Gangjin is the perfect place to enjoy authentic rural culture. And at this time of year, one of the highlights is definitely tangerine picking. And you can just walk through vinyl houses and pick fresh tangerines right off the trees and enjoy a fun hands-on experience. When life gives you tangerines, every piece of fruit delivers a message to those tired of city life, offering a taste of farmers' hard work and a slower, more natural rhythm of life.
The half-price travel policy has had a huge impact on our local economy. Guest numbers at our farm are up about 30%. As the local population is limited, visitors from outside are bringing new energy into this rural community.
And the experiences don't stop at tangerines. Depending on visitor taste, Gangjin offers a wide array of activities, including traditional tea making and tasting, as the places where Korea's first commercial tea was produced. Visitors can gently place tea leaves into molds to experience the making process firsthand and learn proper drinking etiquette along the way. Classic tea snacks like sweet bean jelly add even more depth and flavor to the experience. With so much to see, taste, and experience all at half the price, Gangjin is turning simple moments from tangerines to tea into experiences worth remembering. 박건우, 아리랑 뉴스, 강진.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy has said that a historic U.S. security guarantee is 100% ready for signing. He emphasized that this document now only needs a signing date before heading to Congress for ratification. The announcement on Sunday follows a breakthrough weekend in Abu Dhabi, where military officials from Ukraine, the U.S., and Russia held their first direct trilateral negotiations in years. Zelenskyy said the talks aim to push forward efforts to end Russia's nearly 4-year invasion, but stressed that Ukraine's territorial integrity remains non-negotiable. Negotiators are set to return to Abu Dhabi on February 1st for the next round of talks to finalize terms. In Indonesia, authorities on Sunday resumed the search for 82 missing people after a landslide killed at least 10 in West Java province. Heavy rains, which began the day before, triggered the collapse early Saturday in Pasir Langu village, West Bandung. Rescue teams continued operations as weather conditions improved, but unstable ground and rain warnings slowed efforts and limited the use of heavy machinery. Officials said the collapse buried homes in a residential area, forcing evacuations and raising concerns about further landslides with more rain forecast for the region. U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened Canada with a 100% tariff on Canadian goods if it makes a trade deal with China. Trump said on Saturday that such a trade deal would allow Beijing to use Canada to bypass U.S. tariffs, calling it a direct threat to American economic interests. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney responded on Sunday, asserting Canada respects its U.S. trade obligations and seeks only to rectify specific tariff issues with Beijing, not make a free trade deal. American climber Alex Honnold stunned onlookers in Taipei on Sunday by free soloing the tallest building in Taiwan. Honnold scaled the 508-meter Taipei 101 skyscraper without ropes or safety equipment. He completed the climb in 91 minutes as thousands watched from below, with the event broadcast live by Netflix. The climb took place with official approval from Taipei 101 and city authorities after being delayed one day by wet weather.
Deep freeze continues across much of Korea, with cold wave alerts remaining in place. And this cold air mass with wind chill will remain in place for a while. Be sure to stay well bundled up. And it's not going to be as freezing as last week, but morning temperatures in Seoul will stay near -10 degrees Celsius. And even during the day, afternoon highs will struggle to climb above freezing in most parts. Turning to precipitation, starting tonight, snow is expected in parts of the western regions. Snow will begin along the west coast of Chungcheongnam-do province and Jeju, continuing into tomorrow morning. The Jeollado provinces could see 1 to 3 centimeters of snow. At the same time, dry weather alerts remain in place for the eastern regions, and with several wildfires already reported, it's very important to be cautious with anything that could spark a fire. This afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 0 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees in Daegu, under partly sunny skies in most areas.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.